Everyone, welcome for the part 4 of our flat dripper brew test. I'm Mehmet, and here we are trying to find which flat bottom dripper performs the best with our coffee so that I can use it in our quality control process. For the cone shape, I'm using a V60 usually, but here I want to document this journey on finding which one is the best with our coffee once again. We started with a part 1 with 4 drippers, with a Calida, a December, the April brewer, and the Torch brewer, and slowly we eliminated one by one, purely based on taste, really. And you can find those results on our other video YouTube, and as well a link to our Patreon page where we basically showcase all the result and data and extraction, etc., etc. Here we in a part 3, I did the same basically comparison using a natural Ethiopian, and it was really close, so I couldn't really decide. So here I'm going to use a anaerobically processed coffee, and here we will be using our Pacamara rum oak barrel anaerobics from Pillcocaja in Ecuador. It's an excellent cup of coffee. We have few left, so hurry up to get a hands on this bag. And we're gonna reintroduce our 2 last contestants. So here we have the April brewer, and this one is a little bit broken, but it works fine. It has the particularity of having a larger hole in the bottom and some sort of ridges or things that lifts the paper filter, so it avoids the paper filter to be clogged and to clogging the hole basically. And it has a more aperture, like a little more angle, which allow a shallower bed level, which makes it basically less sort of fast, but also a little more even to extract. Because when it's too sharp and when the bed is too deep, water is lazy, and you may have more challenges with bypass and channeling. On this side, we have the Torch brewer, which is the one also I use to represent the Orea, the very popular Orea dripper. And here I used the Torch because I needed ceramic, right? Because we are comparing apples with apples. I will do another test with a plastic brewer and the Orea dripper, the V3, which use a special plastic. But here, the Torch brewer is the closest that I found that match sometimes with some similarities, the Orea dripper. In the angles, it's a little bit sharper than the April brewer, and it has a larger hole in the bottom with some additional ones on the side to help the extraction. This will flow a little bit faster, but I am not going to grind finer for that purpose. I will really use the same grind size here so that you can really observe which one is a little bit performs the best in terms of taste balance. Let me get the water, and we'll start really shortly. I have a 91 degrees C water with 40 parts per million of alkalinity and equal part of magnesium and calcium, totaling 75 ppm. So here it's 112 parts per million of water. Part per million as calcium carbonate once again. The recipe, I'm gonna change it a little bit. I used to do always, and that's what always I do for my drip coffee, for cone shape, sorry, of 12 grams in, 200 grams of water, 4 pours of 50 grams. And I did the same on the part 3 between those two, but it was really hard to pick. So here I'm gonna change it a little bit. Instead of doing 4 equal pours, I'm gonna do 3 equal pours, but the rest remain the same. So 12 grams in, 200 grams, but 3 equal pours. The grind size is medium, around 850. And we'll see how they do. All right. And I like doing it in one of those categories because obviously there's more and more coffees that we're sourcing. So if you remember, all right. We started with a African coffee from Burundi. So here it's 70, 70, and 60. Then we move on to a more classic washed Colombian coffee, which was really interesting because it showcased that with kind of more affordable coffees, it still tastes delicious. So that was the part 2. The part 3 was with a natural Ethiopian, our Benko Gochichi. And now we have our rum oak barrel anaerobics from Pillcocaja. So here I do 3 pours, 2 pours of 70 grams and 1 pour of 60 grams. There's something about I may talk about it a little bit, but about coarser grind size above 800 microns is that you don't have like fines, and then the peak where the 800 microns are, right? Where most of the distributions are. It's more like a wavy shape. Let me explain. Basically, you have not like the same fine size. Even within those fines, around 500-600, there's a little bump. So you have this side for you guys, like very fine, and then around 500-600, there's a little bump, and then normal, lower in concentration, and then you have your main whatever is your setting. So you have like a 2 peaks basically, and those peaks are mostly based on the grinder you are using. Now we just let it drip. All right, and now we will give it a taste and see which one performed the best. All right, we are done almost. It's interesting. I started with this one, but this one seems to be quicker. They all take the time. They look really, really similar. I will also measure the TDS, extraction, and all those notes, so you'll find it on our link below. But this one is done at 2 minutes 40, 2:40. And this one is done at, now, 3:01, 3. So a little bit faster here, a little bit longer here. And let's give it a swirl, and then a really quick explanation and sensory assessment here. All right, they're both really, really good. Let's cut it, and then I'll taste those and come back with some results. Result now, they are both excellent, honestly. Here is really the nitty-gritty aspect of it. But what we can say about the smell is that the torch or the Orea have slightly more intensity, right? We have slightly more tropical, more sugary aspect on the torch. And on the April, it's still tropical, sugary, but also we start having some citrusiness and floral aspect to it, but a little bit more medium on the intensity. So less intense in smell than the torch / Orea, that kind of shape brewer. On the taste balance, definitely this one highlights the sweetness a lot. Doesn't mean that it's less, that the second one is less sweet, but we have much more sweetness here. And when I say much more, I'm lying. If on a scale of 1 to 5, this will be a 4.5 and this will be a 4. Acidity, a little bit more on the April brewer, slightly less on the torch brewer. And the bitterness, as it cools down, the torch is slightly getting a little bit more bitter, whereas the April is really clean and transparent. Body and texture, they both have the same weight, but the feeling is different. So the body, the kind of weight is exactly the same towards medium high. The texture is a bit fuller and creamier on the on the torch, and silkier and smoother on the April. Aftertaste, very clean for both. As it cools down, it may get a little bit dry. So depending on the temperature, the torch can get slightly dry. They both have a really nice orange, sweet orange finish. And once again, on the flavor intensity, slightly more intensity, tropical notes, cherries, and slightly more of the fermentation taste on the torch brewer, and a very clean, tropical, floral, less intense in flavors, citrus and sweet on the April brewer. So you have basically here, just to summarize everything in terms of feeling and taste balance, torch brewer or torch size Orea for ceramic, once again, more intensity and expression of the coffee, and on the April, more clarity and cleanliness of the taste. TDS exactly the same, 1.22 for all those coffees, and you find all those results on the link below. Even though we finished this one in 3 minutes and this one is 2 minutes and 41, they present different aspects. So, as I explained, now which one is the most preferred one? Once again, it's really, really, really subjective. I tend to prefer this one a little bit more because it's a little bit more balanced and smoother, whereas this one is really a little bit punchier but has more intensity. So it's also easier to pick up the notes. And you really have more balance, so not balance, but you have some acidity, sweetness, and bitterness as well. Whereas this one, you almost cut out the bitterness, and here it's really soft, rounder, a little more gentle on the taste experience, which can be hard to kind of distinguish those flavor notes if you are trying to guess notes. It's a little bit easier here to taste the tropical notes and the cherries, rather than here where it's also added on the floral and citrusy notes to it. My preference goes for this one, the April brewer. However, I will do the test with the plastics because I know that the Orea uses special plastic, and so I'll do the same with the plastic. But when it comes to the ceramic, I really like how the April brewer performs, especially with those anaerobic coffee, because we know that those can get really fermenty, right? But with this method, it makes it really smooth and pleasant and very clean. One could say that, oh, I should have gone finer here, but what happened if we go finer? Maybe we'll form finer again 3 minutes, but now the TDS will be higher and you have more texture. So then you will really reduce our acidity and increase the bitterness, because as it cools down, this one gets a little bit more astringent and drier in the palate. Astringency can be due to the final grind size, but also can be due to mistakes on pouring, and I'm not perfect. But one thing that we can see is that deeper bed can make it easier to create bypass and channeling than a shallower bed. So, in terms of preferences here, I tend to prefer slightly more the April brewer for this balance of flavors and all the attributes like sweetness, acidity, and texture. However, I understand how the torch or the Orea can be a really great tool. And here I really need to do a similar testing but with plastic, because I know that the Orea has a really special technology on the plastic. And so I will do the same with the plastic version of the April and Orea dripper, but those are my two favorite flat bottom dripper. And I will also put it against each other on our tasting to see people which one they prefer the most. But all in all, here you have more expression and intensity of flavors, so easier to pick out some notes, and here a little more balanced, clarity, and transparency of those notes, which I really enjoy as a coffee professional, especially with those anaerobic coffees, which can be a little bit overwhelming if you put too much intensity into it. So That's about it for this part 4. We will meet again on the part 5 with a plastic version of those drippers. See you soon.